Let's do this. Hey everybody, welcome back to Fantasy Inc. My name is Wyeth, and today we're getting into books 3 and 4 of Street Rats of Aramor, written by Michael Wisehart. As always, this first part of the video is just going to be strictly a summary. Since I'm reviewing two books at the same time, we're just going to be focusing on the summary of book 3, which is called Rockslide. Where last we left off in the end of book 2, Arian was able to get away from the big fight in the pit at the end by releasing Flesh Eater, causing distraction for him to not only get his father's ring back by the Umpakan, but also obtain some semblance of a peace between himself and Red. He went back to the granary with Reeve and the other rejected members, but now he is on a path of vengeance. He realizes that Spats set him up in some way, and he's trying to figure out why he did it and trying to solve the Spat situation in a general manner. I'm not going to get into the details in how Arian enacted this vengeance, but I have to say it was very true to his character, and I quite liked how it almost came full circle with his previous experience. Now Arian has to figure out what to do. Does he continue creating his own tribe of rejected street rats, seeing as they were kicked out of the other tribes, or does he figure out a way to come and take over Hurricane? It was an interesting turn of events that I have to recommend y'all check out if you're going to read book 3, but we'll jump past that into how he's going to manage with the guild. Reading the summary published by Audible for book 3, it gives very little information away, which is why I don't want to give too much, but what it does talk about is the guild price. Something to note is when a new tribe is being enacted or an old tribe is getting taken over, that new tribe leader has to pay his way into the guild. This means that the other 4 tribes, Sandstorm, Wildfire, Rockslide, and Hurricane, or Avalanche, Hurricane is the one that Spats had overseen, get to basically tell Arian, hey, you gotta pay up. And it's not just a set price. They get to enact their own demands of what they want, whether that be a specific item, an amount of gold, or even favors being paid for. So I have to admit, when I heard about this, it was an interesting way and a natural way to insert the treasure hunting trope into the book. Now this trope can be done very well or very poorly. If it's done naturally and it makes sense to the story, I am all for it. But if it's used as a filler, that's where I get lost. In this case, it was not. Michael Wisehart has yet again proved to himself of being able to not only cut out the fluff, but get directly to the plot points, which I can greatly appreciate. Having these prices put over his head for the initiation into the guild, whether it be his own tribe or overtaking Hurricane, Arian now is set on that quest to find these items. I will say some are fairly easy and some are not. I think y'all will all be very interested once you get into book 3 of how he's supposed to obtain a few of the items, seeing as they're street kids. You know, yes, they have people who know how to pick pockets or steal items, but at the same time, some of these items are not just something you're going to find on the cart the next street over. So it is definitely an interesting turn of events where Arian's skill set is the only person to be able to go and obtain these items. I will also touch on this topic before we jump into the deep dive of some issues with Rockslide. Obviously, the name of the third book is Rockslide, so they're going to be an important piece of this story, just how you can imagine Sandstorm is for book 4. With Rockslide, it is not in ideal circumstances. The Rockslide Beaters, aka the muscle for the Street Rat tribe, is starting to pick on the Hurricane pickers and the rejected tribe pickers as well. Pickers, again, are the street thieves of these tribes. So with that comes some tension. Arian not only has to protect his street rats who are getting picked on and captured in some cases, but also make sure he does it in a way where he's not going to start tribe wars, getting these two different organizations of street kids fighting in the streets. So he does that in a very interesting way, and I highly recommend getting y'all's opinions on how he is able to manage it. Some may argue that the way he's able to do this is an unrealistic circumstance. What I mean by this is you have a problem, and it just so happens, boom, right there in the story that we found the blueprints and this is how to solve the problem without any backtracking. I don't think that that was the case here. One thing that Michael Wisehart has the ability to do is to create foreshadowing throughout the books, not just at the beginning of the current book you're reading, but he also plays back to book 2, sometimes even book 1, almost like it was thought about very upfront, even though these are minor issues in some cases. Whether he's able to utilize the writing in multiple ways from his previous books, or he really was thinking about these steps all the way back when he was writing book 1, it is very commendable, and I have to say my respect for this author is only growing the further I get into this series. Now, I really want to get y'all's opinions on it, but first, that means you've got to go and read book 3 and book 4 if you want to watch the next part of this video. I'm very much looking forward to getting into the deep dive, and I hope y'all are too. Remember, keep reading. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about books 3 and 4 of Street Rats of Aramor. They are titled Rock Slide and Sandstorm. So at the end of book 2, we saw that Arian had a vendetta, and now he's taking care of it. He's going to take care of Spats. After breaking into his room, he decides to not kill him, but kidnap him and send him on his merry way onto one of the ships leaving the city. I appreciated this. Again, another callback to the lesson of his father. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of this throughout the series of his refusal to kill if it's not in the heat of battle, so time will only tell there. But now they're in a situation where there's the fake tribe, Arian and Reeve's band of misfits, the Rejected, and Hurricane without a leader. After some talking between those two and Sapphire, the de facto head of the guard, they all decide to combine the two and make it one tribe of Hurricane. I thought this was a pretty natural way to combine the two, and how they did it was a very culty speech by Arian. What I mean by that is him almost riling up both of the new tribes into all saying we're rejected, and capping it off with branding himself. Yes, definitely got the point across, but it was very short-sighted in the fact that there wasn't a lot of planning that went into it. He just had the thought and decided to get the brand and do it. So now that they are a new tribe, they need to get approval by the guild. After some intense conversations and some cajoling by Arian against Rock Slide, he is able to get a guild price. Basically, they have to pay the other tribe leaders a price of their choosing to be welcomed into the guild. Some are pretty easy, like Knopf's Purple Hat and Reeve's medical services for the tribe of Wildfire. Others, not so much. Cutter, the leader of Avalanche, wants 15 pieces of gold, which is hard to come by, and a new set of daggers. And Core, the leader of Rock Slide, wants the King's Seal, aka Signet Ring. Prior to the meeting, Core also tried to kidnap Arian, but also roughed up Reeve and Sapphire a little bit. So they still made it to the meeting, but they were not unscathed. With that, Core has to agree to let them into the guild, but his price is very high, as y'all can tell. After this, Mr. Fenton, the local bookstore owner who helps out the street rats on occasion by feeding them, is arrested. This came to be by a senator who accused him of harboring criminals, aka the children, when they were running from the patrol, and he is sentenced to be shipped off to the salt mines in the morning. The only way that Arian can think of freeing Mr. Fenton is by blackmailing the senator. After threatening to kill the senator in his bed, the senator sees right through him and decides to just go ahead and blackmail Arian back, and he asks him to get his family ring that was stolen by another senator who happens to be his neighbor. One of the themes I picked out for book 3 was the rings. We get to see not only he has to obtain the signet ring of the king, but he also has to obtain the ring for this senator so that he can get Fenton. These are some of the things I look for in books, picking out themes. I want to see if y'all saw any in book 3 or book 4 as well that you can note in the comments. Once he finds out that Fenton was freed earlier that evening, Fenton shares some interesting information. He tells Sapphire, Reeve, and Arian after his release from the docks that the king is holding an open forum to listen to the peasants. Basically hear their concerns and see if he can alleviate some problems with coin or some favors to be looked into. With that, Arian comes up with an outlandish plan to steal the ring. This seems a little foolhardy, but he set himself into this situation and he has to figure out how to resolve it. After entering the castle under the guise of a young man trying to get some medicine for his fake father, he speaks with the king and queen, actually discussing the issues the street rats have with surviving in Aramor. Good conversation that they end up looking into a little further, but then he skirts around the castle, getting to meet a few people in the interim, actually running into a young boy in the king's study in his closet, or armoire? Whatever. After a bit of a kerfuffle with the guards, Arian gives a very abridged, real, fake version of why he's there and why he needs the ring. He's let go from the castle with a little bit of gold in his pocket, but he did not obtain what he came for. With this, they decide to create a fake signet ring and try to pass it off as the real one. When they go to the guild meeting and this is discovered, lo and behold, the prince comes and saves the day by giving him another fake ring. So there's a couple in this story, actually. This solidifies their position as the new de facto heads of Hurricane, and that lets us enter book 4. My favorite thing about book 4 is the time jump. Some authors do not do this correctly, and other authors do it magnificently. Michael Wisehart in this situation, it was very well warranted, so he aged up the characters by about 2 years. With that, we jump into the story. Arian goes further into the royal palace now, where he's been training the young princeling on sword fighting. He is taken to the side by the king and asked to become a lancer, basically the main fighting force of the king, so that he can now impart this training to the princeling, who only really respects Arian as a teacher. He's placed with bunk 11, about 5 of the black sheep of the Lancers who mouth off on occasion to their commanding officers. After a bit of a scuffle to test Arian when they first meet, they quickly begin to respect the young man and have his back. While all this is going on, Arian, Reeve, and Sapphire, the leaders of Hurricane, are requested to come to a meeting over at Sandstorm by the tribe leader Knopf. He then informs them that he's planning on retiring and is going to basically gift his tribe over to them because they actually care about the children that they oversee. I do enjoy Knopf as a character, as he has always proved to be very intelligent in how he maneuvers. He's also, we find out, bumping shoulders with a lot of the nobility, which goes to show why he has so much gold in his back pocket. Sadly, we find out that Noff's intentions for retiring are not so idealistic. He has now gotten himself into trouble with a senator for creating the opportunity for infidelity for his wife, basically opening up the Sandstorm estate as a hotel for inappropriate escapades. With this, he needs to escape the city and leaves prior to Arian, Sapphire, and Reeve being able to dissolve the Hurricane Tribe before Noff can pass off the leadership role to Sapphire. This definitely puts them in a bit of a bind, but they find a solution. They're just going to move on with the plan without Noff now that he's put his intentions into writing, and they try to move their members out of the Temple of Hurricane and stow them away at the Sandstorm estate. When the other tribes catch wind that Noff is no longer in the city and has a warrant for his arrest, Avalanche basically make a move on the Hurricane territory. Now, there's not a lot of members still there. A lot of them have already been moved over, but the few that remain are able to escape the temple through the secret passage that Reeve has in the infirmary. This is one of the instances where Mr. Wisehart did a great job with foreshadowing. He not only mentioned the idea of tunnels with Arian's escapades with the princeling, trying to escape the palace without being seen so they could hit a bar, as well as with Reeve's secret apple stash that Arian had been talking about since book 2. So whether this was thought this far ahead, or he's just able to weave these threads of the story together so well, I'll never know, but I appreciate it. Once they get over to the Sandstorm compound, there's obviously some friction between the Hurricane Tribe and the Sandstorm Tribe. I, to be quite honest, completely expected another culty speech from Arian. He might even brand himself a second time. I wouldn't put it past him. But no, they actually get to come together as one tribe through a battle for blood. This is when Kor's tribe, Rockslide, comes to attack the compound. Thankfully, the bard that was rescued previously in this book is a wielder. He has the power of persuasion and spins a tale of a young man who can't be beat going up against a dragon and finding out that he has no friends behind his back. This is when Kor's tribe and Arian's tribe flee in different directions because they were given such great fear from the story. We get to see a battle ensue between Arian and Kor, and seeing as our protagonist is a master swordsman, he makes quick work of the brute. Arian decides to follow back in his father's footsteps and lets Kor go. Personally, I don't know if I would have made the same decision, and I thought this was going to be the opportunity that Arian takes to branch out and be almost his own man and make decisions for himself, not following in his father's footsteps. But he raised some good points. He doesn't know who's going to replace Kor. He'd rather have the enemy he knows than the enemy he doesn't. Also, there's definitely going to be some backlash with the guilds if this becomes a precedent. So I can understand his mentality there. Finally, this is where the story kind of wraps up. To be quite candid, it was very abrupt. Yes, all the threads were tied together neatly at the end, but it must have only been like a couple pages after this battle with Kor that the book just kind of ends. Some things I took away from this series: obviously, Michael Wisehart is a master of foreshadowing himself. Not only for the tunnel scenario, but also we get to see a conversation that Arian had earlier in the book with the Queen about what can be done better for the street kids, and he mentions apprenticeships so that they can become productive members of society. Later on in the book, we get to see Arian meet a healer who he then introduces to Reeve, getting to bolster his knowledge. I'd like to know if y'all saw any other foreshadowing that I should be made aware of. Feel free to let me know in the comments, and let's be sure to talk about it. With that, book 5 is Wildfire, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how the new Sandstorm tribe is going to interact with Wildfire and seeing where this series is going to be taken next. Michael Wisehart has really amped my expectations up, and I have a good feeling that he's going to not disappoint. I want to get y'all's opinions on this review, what I may have missed, and what I should be sure to mention in the next video. I hope y'all have wonderful days, and be sure to keep reading.